This video will demonstrate how to configure and set up a Prosoft PLX51PBM Profibus DP gateway module, and it's connected to a Allen Bradley PLC using Studio5000 communicating over Ethernet IP. The first thing you're going to need to do is download the Prosoft Configuration Utility. So if you type that into a search engine, it should bring up straight away the Prosoft Technology website, which is the PLX51PBM module manufacturer. And if you navigate across to downloads, you'll see the latest version of the configuration utility. And if you click on that, the download should start automatically. Once it has downloaded, you can transfer it to any folder that you want on your computer. So I'm just going to copy mine and transfer it across onto my desktop. I'm now going to extract all the files. Now the files have been extracted, I'm going to delete the zip file as I don't need that anymore, and double click the executable file to start the installation. So just click next, and then these are the file types you want to automatically open with this software. I'm going to leave that as is. If you want to, you can browse to a different folder to install this file, but again, I'm just going to leave that as is and start the installation. And then click finish. So that's now successfully installed on the computer. And I'm just going to search for it and open the file location, as I want to put a shortcut to it on my desktop because it's something I'll be using quite regular. Okay, so if you click into the configuration utility, this will open up the software. And if you go to File and New, we'll create a new project. And if you right click on there and click Add, and this is where you'll select the PLX51PBM module. If you have a different type of module, this is where you'd select it. So we'll go down, and there's the Profibus Gateway Master that we'll be using, and OK that. So now I'm going to change the name of this. This is important. So if you're using Studio5000, it doesn't usually like dashes. So I'm getting rid of the dash. I'm going to put an underscore and 1 just in case there's a couple of networks with a couple of PBM modules. And I'm just going to call it Profibus Master Network number 1. And then you want to put the IP address of the module in, or if you are online to it with everything connected up, you can browse it as long as your laptop's within the same range on the IPs. But I'm just going to put mine in now because I'm offline to 192.168.0.10. It's a standalone master, so I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm using it on Ethernet IP. If you're using it on anything else for Modbus, that's where you would change that. And again, if you were to use Modbus, you'd fill in these tabs, but as I'm not using those, I'm just going to leave those. Once on the Profibus tab, this is where you're going to set how many Profibus instruments or devices you're connected to. So the PLX51 PBM module is usually set to station 1. And I'm only going to have the one device on my network for this tutorial. So I'm going to put 4 because I might add a couple after. Then with the baud rate, I usually find that 45.45 is a good starting point, but sometimes depending on the network you might need to change that to maybe 19.2 or 93.75. But again, if you want it faster, you can change those accordingly to whatever your Profibus network requires. So I'm just going to leave that at 45.45 for now. If you lose comms to the PLC, you can force these to the module to go offline or just carry on as normal. But I'm leaving most things just as it's set to once you have added in the new project. So on Logix, this is where you'll add your PLC. You can browse to it on the 3 little dots if you're connected to it. Otherwise, I'm not. So again, I'm offline. So I'm just going to put 192.168.0.1, which is my IP address for my PLC, and apply that. And if you check the other tabs, you've got advanced, which I'm connected via a DLR for my devices, which is a device level ring. So I have a separate network with separate IP addresses to the process control network. So I'm going to click that to enable. Again, if you've got time synchronization as well, you can click that on and add the IP address for that, but I don't, so I'm just going to leave that as is. So I'm happy with that. The Modbus and Ethernet IP devices and maps generally is for when you're online, but again, I'm not changing anything on that. I don't need to, so I'm just going to apply that and OK. So that's the basics of the module setup. So I'm just going to save the project now. So now the project's saved, we want to add in our first device. So if you right click on Profibus devices, you click add Profibus device. So this has brought up the GSD files. I've currently got one in there already because I had one on a previous project. So this I will delete, but I'll show you another way to get to the GSD files in the GSD file manager. So you go to Tools and GSD file manager. I'm just going to delete that, but once you've added some GSDs, they'll always stay in there for future projects, so you don't have to find them every time. So if you've just started a brand new project and you haven't got any GSDs, you'll need to download those from the manufacturer's website. So I'm going to add in a Siemens Hydro Ranger 200. So I've already downloaded the GSD file from the Siemens website, and I'm going to add that in now. So that goes in there, and then if you click on it and OK, it'll bring up then the settings for your instrument. So my instrument's a level instrument and it's called LIT001, so I'm going to just change the name to reflect that, and I'm going to click apply, and you'll see in the left hand side there it's assigned it node 2 and changed its name accordingly. So node 1 is always the Profibus master, so it already knows that's taken and it's assigned the next one to node 2. So you can choose to byte swap the words. Because it's Profibus going over to Ethernet, you need to do some word swapping, but it's always best to do that in the PLC, just in case you change this in the instrument or the PLX51 PBM module needs replacing. Then if these were added back in and it didn't have byte swapping activated, then your logic wouldn't work in your Studio 5000. So it's always best to just leave that as none and do the byte swapping in Studio 5000. So I'm just going to apply that. You've got your DP V1. Again, I'm just going to leave that as is. User parameters, nothing I need to put in there, so you can leave that. Slot configuration, this is the words from the instrument that's set out by the GSD. So you can see the different byte lengths on the right, and number of words in the modules. Now you can delete these and change them to what you want, but they reflect exactly how the manual of the Hydro Ranger is shown. So you can see length first one is byte 4, and that's the first one there was your PV. But I'm going to delete these down and basically just make it one full word, so then I'm only transferring the one full word into the PLC, and I haven't got lots of different ones to then pull in, because I'm going to use an add-on instruction and set that up for the instrument. So I don't want lots of words coming across separately, I want them all together as one. Okay, so I'm going to make a group of 16 words, which is the ones I've highlighted there on the manual, and you can see the byte length is 32, and on my device I only want the one totalizer, so I'm just going to pull that across separately and have that as a separate word, but I don't need the second totalizer, so I'm going to leave that out. So I'm just going to add in another 2 words, which is the 4 bytes for the first totalizer, and have that separate. The startup parameters, again, I'm just going to leave those. There's nothing there I need to put in. Same with the DPV1 objects and alarms. So I'm just going to OK that. I'm going to save the project. So now you're going to want to make a L5X file to import them into the Studio5000 software. So if you right click on the module and click Generate Logic L5X and save that to wherever you want to save it to. So I'm just going to put it on the desktop for now. And then if I close this down, I'm just going to open up Studio5000, which is one I've previously prepared to import this file into. So you're going to firstly want to add in to your hardware tree in Studio5000 your Ethernet card, because we're communicating to the PLX51PBM module over Ethernet. So I'm just going to search for the controller I'm using and the relevant Ethernet card for that, which is an EN2TR. So I'm going to add that in. And I'm going to give it its name. Just going to call it Ethernet 1. And then I'm going to put its IP address, which was 192.168.0.1 for the PLC. I'm just going to OK that. And again. So now I've got my Ethernet. So that's in slot 1, and I'm going to add a new module, and this is where I'll add in the PLX51 module. So because I've already got the ESD file, I've got it showing up here, but if you don't have it showing up in your Studio5000, you'll need to download your ESD file from the manufacturer's website and go to EDS hardware installation, and it'll bring open a window where you'll basically just want to click next, and it'll install that EDS for you. And then when you go back to new module to add into your tree, you should be able to type in PLX and you should see your PBM module in there. So I'm just going to call this PLX51PBM_1. So it's important to call it exactly what you called it in your configuration utility. So I've called it the same there, you see. So make sure that's the same, because when it creates the tags, it's going to be looking for that and then I'm going to put in the IP address of the module that we put in our configuration. So mine ends in 10. So let's go back, and I'm just going to put that in here. 192.168.0.10. Okay, so we've got that now in our hardware tree. So the next thing we're going to want to do is import our L5X file. So I've got my I/O buffers here, and you go right click on your program, add and import routine, and then if you navigate to where you've saved the L5X file, so mine was in my desktop folder, and there it is at the bottom. So I'm just going to click on this and open, and here you can click through the tags, data types and other components. Basically that'll just show you what tags are going to be created, if there's any that are getting created or that are already existing in the project, and so on. You don't need to look at those specifically to do anything with them if you don't want. You can just click OK and it'll import that in. So you can see there it's got the PLX51PBM _1 and then underscore, and we've got LIT001. So it's created the data that we created in the Prosoft Configuration Utility. And if we go to our tags here, you can see our input and output tags to the device. And there's my 16 words that I created, and my 2 words for my totalizer. And we can just go back into the instrument, and here you can see my 16 words there and my 2 words for the totalizer. So that's how it looks once it's imported those tags in the data type. Now the status is always created because that's the actual module data. So you'll need to know data exchange is active, if there's an identification mismatch, device error, all those things you'll be able to know if there's an issue. So it's good to have that status and use that information if you've got any fault finding that you need to do, if you've got any issues. And these are the words that are used, which obviously I can go through the manufacturer's instruction manual and it'll match those words and I'll know what's what, and then I can manipulate those to show my process variable, status words of the instrument, and anything else that's set up in there from that instruction manual. So our master control and master status, those again are for the module itself. So we'll put in commands for the master control. So what we'll do is we'll add commands in for looking at starting the communication between the PLC and the PLX51PBM module. And if you have a look here, you've got the master control. I didn't draw that very well. And you can see that we need to put in something to start the communication. So we need to put 3 in to our master control bit to put the network state to operational. And then device enable, we're also going to want to start the data exchange to the instrument. So again, we need to put a bit 1 for our device enable. So just going to show you how to do that now. Just going to add in a new rung. So I've just saved and add a new rung. Just going to put it on the top there so that it's executed first. So that's the 3 we need to put in, and now I just need to find the master control bit to start the communication. That's our master control there. And master control there. So that's where we need to put the 3 to tell the module that we want to start the network and make it operational. And then I'm just going to add another one because we need to then put in a bit to tell it to make the instrument operational, so the data exchange will start. So I'm just going to latch this on so that every time it starts and it runs through that execution, it's going to make sure that that's latched on, because I always want it to be on for reading all of the data constantly. And the one we're looking at, we're putting in brackets there 2 because our device is node 2. So if we can see here, device enabled, we've enabled it for data exchange. If you would have another device after that and it was node 3, you'd need another one of those and also have it exactly the same, other than the 2 would be a 3. So that all depends on how many devices you've got for how many of those you're going to need. And so once again, just want to show you all of our data that's coming in, and we're now basically at the point of where we can download to both the PLX51 module and also to the PLC. This is all our offline config set up now for the one instrument. I'll be making another video once I'm online to the PLC and I'm connected up and online to the Profibus PLX51PBM module. I hope you found this video informative and helpful. Please feel free to subscribe, and thanks for watching.